I'm Adrian Legge. I've been blacksmithing for 48 years professionally, but I was born and brought up on a farm with a forge on it. My dad was a blacksmith, a farrier and a farmer, so I was used to going in the workshop and playing with stuff fairly early on. I was reasonably academic though, so I didn't really start blacksmithing until I was in my later teens, 18, 19, purely and simply because my mother thought I was probably clever enough to earn a living with my brain instead of my muscle, because she said I was too lazy to work for a living. But I ended up working for a living, and so I started working with my dad, did a 4-year apprenticeship, and over that time started training other apprentices, trained 3 with dad. I took over the business, did that for a bit, and I was working for about 10 years or so, and I got the chance to do some part-time teaching at Hereford. Started doing that. It got a bit serious, and I was asked if I wouldn't mind going there full-time. So it meant closing the business down, but I had a chat to Fiona, my wife, and we talked about it because it was going to cost us some money, but we didn't mind. So that was a bit of a change in direction. I carried on with my business, but that was part-time then. That was weekends and evenings, and teaching became a full-time occupation. I got involved with writing qualifications, developing qualifications, becoming a national assessor, and all those educational things that you do. In the meantime, I also did a similar thing with the blacksmithing, so I became a national judge. I was invited onto the Worshipful Company Craft Committee, so I ended up being one of the assessment panel that assesses other blacksmiths for awards and things like that. What else did I do? So I actually then involved in various teams writing qualifications. I was fairly heavily involved in writing our current apprenticeship scheme, which we're trying to get off the ground with some difficulties, and I ended up managing at college, wearing a suit and a tie. I did that for about 4 or 5 years. I was in charge of, what was I in charge? Agricultural engineering, welding, fabrication, farriery and blacksmithing. But I could do it, but it wasn't really my thing. So I said to the principal one day, I said, I've had enough of this. You can either sack me or I'll go back on the spanners. So I went back to teaching. But as I got older, I reduced my teaching time down, went proportional, and eventually about 3 years ago decided to retire before I stopped enjoying it. And then I went back into my forge, my original forge.
So what brings you to California?
It's not what you know, it's who you know, isn't it? And I know Mark Asprey very well, and he said, do you want to come to somewhere that's too hot, that's got mosquitoes, what's not to like? It's got a lot of mad blacksmiths as well.
Absolutely.
And would you like to do some demoing? So yeah, I can do that.
I ended up taking your class online.
Yeah.
Class?
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
You had a lot of good stuff to say.
Yeah, as I've got more involved with stuff, I've become more and more interested in, and this has been 25, 30 years ago, more interested in design and how the idea of creativity and where it comes from and how we foster it within our craft, because we get very, very interested in how good our square points are, and we're very prepared to invest time and effort into getting that right, but we're not necessarily quite so good as a craft at exploring the possibilities. You know, we've got this wonderful material, it's plastic. We can push and shove it around, and it's soft and it's pliable, and then we let it get cold and it will hold up a car. You know, it's a fantastic material, and we could possibly do more with it than just reiterating history. And I say that is somebody, we need to look after our historical form. You know, I'm a trustee of the National Heritage Ironwork Group, and we've written conservation principles for looking after this huge sort of collection of ironwork we've got in our country, and it's really important. But we shouldn't be doing it forever. We shouldn't be just making the same stuff. You know, we need to move on, and I think, you know, having sort of young people like yourself sort of taking it forward and pushing it on is really important.
Anything you would say to a young blacksmith just starting out?
You've got to be grounded. You know, if you're going to do it as a hobby, fair enough. But if you want to do it as a business, you've got to remember that you're pleasing the client, you're not pleasing yourself necessarily. But you do need to explore variants, because you need to be able to put those in front of the public in a way that they think, oh yeah, I like that and I want a bit of that. So there's that as well. I am constantly in awe. When I started teaching, I used to think, you know, I'm the one that knows everything, you know, the students know nothing. It's up to me to impart my knowledge so that they can actually understand it in a way that they can use it. But until you start teaching, you do not realize how often you're going to be walking down a workshop floor with basic beginners who've never really done much, and you go, wow, that's a great idea. Or you're about to walk across to someone saying, no, you don't do it that way. And you think, that worked. That should, and it alters your thinking, because that, you know, they haven't got the same filters that we've got, the same barriers that we've developed over time. So I really like working with young people. It's fascinating.
So tell me, you're working on that.
Yeah.
What made you come up with that?
It's a bit of Mark's fault.
Oh, really?
I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, I want you to do a couple of little demo things. I want you to do an online, you know, talk. And I want you to do a project over a couple of days where we talk. And I said, well, what is it? He said, well, our theme is time. So I had to ponder about, you know, things with pendulums and all sorts of stuff, and I was a bit sort of stuck. So I thought, hang on a minute, I'll approach it from the other angle. I'll look at sort of forms and sort of styles and things that I like. So part of it was I've been looking a bit at the transition from Nouveau to Deco a bit, you know, and I'm enjoying that. You know, looking at it, but also like the natural world as well. You know, I'm a country boy, so I've got bucket loads of pictures of birds and things like that taking off, swooping down. So that essentially is based on a swan taking off from the water. Hang on, you can't see it quite there. Let me stand up. I've been doing notes all day. So that's the side, so that's ground level there. And this is just taking off, and those are the wing forms. But I took the basic premise of that wing form from an Art Deco lamp that I quite like the form of. So that's your Art Deco lamp. That's your sort of swanish, my interpretation of a cut down version of it. This detail here is something that stems from a little fixing technique I developed some years ago, and I've used it on one or two things. So I've got to that point where I sort of amalgamated these together to make that. And that's quite a basic drawing. And I contacted Mark and said, can you get me some profiles cut? So we've had these, but then I've been using some of these profiles. So this profile will sit about there. That's the neck piece. The feather areas, like this piece here is this piece here, coming forward. These profiles here, coming round here. That is a tail piece there, so that's the detailing of that. And this piece is going to end up down there like that.
That's great.
And so that will sit eventually on there like that.
All right, we're starting to run out of time, but
Good.
any advice you give for a new blacksmith struggling with design?
You can get what I call tin shed disease. You can be stuck on your tin shed on your own, thinking you're the only person with any of the issues, and you're alone in the world, and you're the only one thinking like that. It's rubbish. And the more you mix with your blacksmithing family, events like this, the more you mix with people that look far older than you and who are much more stuck in their ways, but they will have these little gems that they will share with you. And sometimes they're a lot looser in their thinking and a lot more accepting of individual creativity than you might give them credit for. Like, you look at me, I'm a typical looking blacksmith. I'm fat, I got a beard, put me under a spreading chestnut tree. I am the typical blacksmith. So are some of these guys. But they're not necessarily thinking like that, you know? And they're thinking outside of the box all the time. And if you ask to look at their portfolios, ask to look at what they're doing, learn from them. And talk to each other as young people. Share your ideas. Look at the world. You can look at something and not see it.
Absolutely.
You know? So every time you see something you like the look of, don't walk past it. Examine it. Possibly draw it. Because if you draw something, you're studying it. And the drawing itself is irrelevant. Like, my quality of drawing is pretty poor. But when I draw something, I really begin to understand it. And this is my drawing medium, this material here. So when I start drawing in that, I can really start to cook and get it to really work. And hopefully this will turn, you know, this will be an example of some reasonably, inverted commas, original thought.
I'll have to come back and get a video of this when this is all done.
All right?
All right.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I'm having a great time, and thank you for inviting me.
And here's what the finished piece looks like. I got some video of it being made and finished up, so stay tuned if you want to see that.
If you've got a bush striker, they hit to the same place usually, not 3 times in the place where you just left it alone. I'm just saying that for interest to the crowd, and not as a point of... Right, didn't it? It makes even an idiot like me look quite good.
Back in that corner, it was that would have been a pretty scaly piece back there.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get at it to clean it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they did it.
What do you mean it did?
Well, let me get some extra wax on the 412 here.
A big thanks to Adrian for letting me interview him, and thanks for making such a cool piece and giving me some pointers along the way. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. Hope you have a great day.